You might find this hard to believe, but I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about the world and the future of humanity. In fact, I'm excited about it. As for the Earth will survive us. Despite all the damage we have done and are likely to continue doing, the Earth will survive us. There have already been numerous mass extinctions on this planet where most living things were wiped out, but even after the worst of times, life on Earth has come back every single time, and those comebacks are inevitable. It's humans who are at risk of extinction, not the Earth, so make no mistake, if we keep doing what we've always done, we will be done for. But even if we wipe out most of the life on the planet along the way, the Earth will come back as it always has. There may just not be a place for us on it. An outsider alien species studying us might wonder if we're on a suicide run because we're making the world uninhabitable for ourselves. But the Earth will right itself. Humans, on the other hand, are at great risk of exterminating ourselves, and the only way to fix it is by tweaking some of the ways we go about things. Now, I'm not anti-capitalist, by the way. In fact, I'm not even anti-industrial food system per se. I mean, look at this amazing world and these incredible lives we have. The modern supermarket is a miracle. The food industry is a miracle. I mean, we actually complain that we have too much food and obesity and illnesses that come from overeating. I mean, are we listening to ourselves right now? The first animals in the history of the planet to actually complain about the abundance of food. Now, industrialization, free enterprise capitalism, the dog-eat-dog, mechanized one-way ticket of consumerism has built an astonishing world, and my life, by the standards of most of the 117 billion people who came before me, would seem nothing short of miraculous. I have an amazing life. The fact that I can film and publish these videos and the fact that you can watch them to a person of just a few generations ago would have seemed unfathomable. Capitalism, consumerism, industrialization, and mechanization have given me a life so comfortable, secure, and free that I can sit here in my comfortable little studio and actually complain about it. Now, even the founders of the United States could not have dreamt of this kind of abundance, but I think we have outgrown some aspects of it. It's worked very well for us. Past tense. It's time to do things differently. Now think about it. American-style Republican democracy replaced monarchy, but if it hadn't been for monarchy, the world that the framers lived in could not have existed. Monarchy and feudalism created an incredible world, but the time came when that needed to be replaced. Similarly, the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of the Paleolithic was incredible, but the time came when that way of life was replaced by organized society. Well, and here we are again. Making more money so that we can buy more stuff only to be disappointed by how short-lived the happiness of stuff is, driving us to work harder to buy more things to buy another quick fleeting rush of temporary happiness, isn't working anymore. Working hard to buy more things to help cope with working hard to buy more things to help cope with working hard to buy more things to help cope isn't working anymore because we've gotten wise to the game. Now, I don't want to give up my comfortable life any more than you do, but too many of us have realized it's a sucker's bet because the happiness of stuff doesn't last. Too many of us have realized that it can't be sustained because we're taking stuff out of the earth faster than it can replenish itself. Too many of us know that linear consumption doesn't work in a cyclical world. Too many of us have realized that we can't fix it by buying more stuff, and besides, that doesn't really make us happy anyway. Not really. It's time for an upgrade. It's time for us to make something better, and there is no better place to lay the foundation for something better than food. So, say it with me one more time, with feeling. Linear consumption doesn't work in a cyclical world. Now, food has been the fundamental keystone to every revolution of human lifeways, and the present is no exception. If we change our food, we'll change the world. Or how is it I've been putting it? You make the food, and then the food makes you. You make the food, and then the food makes you. And it will be true as long as intelligent life exists, because there is no other way. In fact, it's inevitable. The world changes when the food changes. So let's get cooking, make a better world. Who's hungry? It's probably obvious that I have some critiques of the modern industrialized food system, yes. But one thing I want to make really clear, and I hope to remember to say it over and over and over, is don't vilify farmers and ranchers. You can have whatever opinions you want about modern agricultural practices, but never, ever make a bad guy out of the people who grow your food. You literally owe them your life. Never forget that. Now, maybe you don't like the way that some farmers go about their business. Fine. Although, how would you like it if a farmer showed up at your job and told you how to go about your business? Now, yes, you should question food policies and have informed opinions and work for what you believe in because you are the end user. You are the consumer. And in our capitalist system, it's their job to meet you. But never, ever, ever make farmers and ranchers out to be bad guys. Now, that's not to say that I don't have deep-seated concerns about a lot of agricultural practices. If you've been watching my channel, then you are probably well aware that I have strong feelings on the subject, but there's a huge difference between having opinions about policy and making bad guys out of the people who are doing the best they can in a system that's rigged against them at every turn. Farmers are heroes because they make all of our food, and food matters. Because you matter, and you are made of food. You are made out of ingredients. So, what's your ingredient list? One of the things that makes me more optimistic than just about anything is regenerative farming. You could really think of regenerative farming as the opposite of desertification. Simply put, regenerative farming means doing things in a way that protects and builds topsoil. And that's really important. And we're going to talk here about the how and the why. You see, soil takes about 500 years to grow 1 inch, but we are depleting it at a rate about 10 times that. Some estimates say that if we keep doing what we've been doing, we have somewhere near maybe 50 more harvests left before we start running out of soil. And that is a really strong argument for regenerative agriculture. Now, one thing you may not have learned in school is that there are actually 2 water cycles. You probably learned about the big water cycle, where water evaporates off the ocean, turns into clouds that bring rain to the land, and then that rain runs off into the rivers and streams and returns to the ocean where the cycle starts over again. Way cool! But there's also a small water cycle. And interestingly, the small water cycle is the source of most of our rainfall. About 65% of precipitation is the product of the small water cycle, whereas the large water cycle only accounts for about 35% of our precip. The way the small water cycle works is similar to the large water cycle, but instead of the ocean, the water's kept in the soil and then brought up to the air by the plants growing in it. And this is especially powerful with trees, since they evapotranspire, here's your vocabulary word of the day, evapotranspire their water higher up. And as it evaporates, it has a cooling effect on the earth, and we all know how important that is. And the thing is, the small water cycle depends on healthy soil to work. Healthy soil has lots of little pores in it because of all the organic material it contains. The more organic material in the soil, the more water it can hold. In fact, adding just 1% more organic matter in an acre-foot of soil enables it to hold 20,000 more gallons of water. So this is incredible bang for the buck. Now, that healthier soil can also support more plant life. In fact, it just supports more life in general. Soil that can hold more water has more microbes in it, leading to more plant growth, leading to more rain in the small water cycle, leading to more plants, leading to more rain, etc. in a beautiful positive feedback loop, which also means more carbon gets sequestered in the ground, and that is a very good thing. In fact, for every 1% increase in organic matter in an acre of soil, 10 tons of carbon is sequestered. And again, that is a lot of bang for the buck. It's been estimated that if we widely used regenerative agriculture techniques, we could literally sequester more carbon than we currently make. That's the exhaust of every plane, train, automobile, factory, and cow fart put in the ground where it belongs, with room to spare for the junk we've already put up in there. And all we have to do is take better care of our living soil. Now, if you watched my video on the microbiome, then you know that our bodies are mostly made of microbes and that those microbes do most of the work in digesting our food and helping us absorb all the nutrients. Well, the soil is kind of the same deal. It has loads of microbes, more in one handful than all humans ever born ever in history. And those microbes do all the heavy lifting in making nutrients available to our plants and also running and maintaining the vital cycles of nitrogen, carbon, and water. But those mechanisms break down without the microbes, releasing all the carbon up into the atmosphere where it causes serious problems. Now, synthetic chemicals tend to kill off all those microbes, turning healthy soil into dead dirt, which is no longer capable of storing carbon or water, so all that stuff just floats up into the air, leaving dry, dead, unstructured soil. And that's what's known as desertification. Using those chemicals, also known as inputs, can and does increase crop yield for a few years, but after a while, the soil just becomes dead. It stops being soil. It becomes a downward spiral. Overuse of chemicals depletes the soil and yield goes down. So then there's a motivation to apply even more chemicals, which in the long run depletes the soil further. And that's why we're currently losing topsoil faster than it can be replenished. We've lost about a third of it since the 1970s, and as I said, we have maybe 50 or on the outside 70 harvests left before we run out. Now, not only do chemical inputs kill off all the microbes in healthy soil, pesticides in particular tend to leach into the drainage and groundwater while also creating yet another downward spiral. You see, when we use chemical inputs to kill off weeds and bugs, those weeds and bugs over time develop resistance to the chemicals. You could kind of think of them as like agricultural superbugs. And the more chemicals we invent to kill them, the more resilient they become. It's basically like a cage match between human science and nature, and the fact is nature has been at it a lot longer than we have, so effectively it has about a 3.7 billion year head start on us. The long-term result can often be yields that are actually lower than they were before the inputs were ever applied in the first place. So, on a given piece of land, you start out with several years of impressive gains, and then eventually the soil becomes so dead that you can't grow anything without chemical fertilizer. But even then, you've robbed the soil of its ability to hold water, which causes even more chemical runoff, so it creates another feedback loop. The soil loses, the farmer loses, the water loses, people lose, and the Earth's ability to support human life loses. And this is another working example of desertification. According to Alan Savory, one of the leaders in the regenerative agriculture movement, more than 20 civilizations in history failed because they damaged their environment to the point of making agriculture impossible. It's happened before. And he points out that poor soil creates poor people. And I think that's true. Desertified land leads to famines and droughts and other disasters, meaning more desperate people fleeing across more borders, more economic instability leading to xenophobia, racism, and social unrest in general, which creates a perfect environment for extremist recruitment, leading to more terrorism and more atrocities. What a mess. Soil is not dirt. It's a living thing full of microbes, fungi, animals, and plants. Like I said, there are more living organisms in a scoop of soil than all the people who have ever been born, both living and gone. 25% of Earth's biodiversity lives in the soil. 95% of food production depends on soil, but we also depend on it for water purification. Now, more than 50 billion tons of topsoil have been eroded in the American Midwest alone. The top 10 threats to soil have been identified as erosion, organic carbon loss, nutrient imbalance, acidification, contamination, waterlogging, compaction, sealing, salinization, and loss of biodiversity. The best way to address everything on that list is to take better care of the soil. So at this point, you may be wondering how I could possibly say I'm optimistic. Well, the reason for my optimism is that this is so within our reach. If we can just improve how we take care of our soil, we can make huge inroads to solving the climate crisis while still feeding the world. We can make our world more fecund, more green, more alive, and more balanced. We can lift people up. We can give the little guy a better shot. And we really can do this. The food industry is skittish, paranoid, and preoccupied with self-preservation, and they respond to pressure from us, the consumers, in an almost desperate way. If you haven't watched my video on If you haven't watched my video on us versus the food industry and why we are winning, I highly recommend it because it explains how we have the upper hand and the food industry will always end up doing our bidding. They will find ways to sidestep and cheat for sure, but there are people making serious money whose job it is to figure out what you want. They have made a literal science out of it. Another really great thing is that healthy food raised sustainably has more nutrition and tastes better. Again, if you haven't watched my blind taste tests, you can see this in action for yourself. So eating healthier food literally raises your joy factor. And as I've said before, eat something delicious and you win. So let's make the food that makes us. This is in our hands. You are made out of ingredients. What's your ingredient list? I'll be going more in depth on all of this in future videos, and I'm really looking forward to that. But for now, it's time to wrap up this video. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you next time. Ciao.